into Outkick the Show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Friday, wherever you may be across this entire universe. Friday, as always, making the world seem like a better place. I have got the world to be a better place for you because Santa Clay is here, and Santa Clay is about to make you a lot of money. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the hot streak that we've been on in college football gambling picks of late, but we've surged all the way back up to 52.4% winners, which is in the money, which means if you had just shut up and not complained at all about the picks that I have given out this year, you would have made money so far, and we're about to continue that with 10 good winners. Right off the top of the show here today, I want to give you all of my picks. Let me run through them for you. Michigan, Indiana. This is too many points for Indiana to be getting against Michigan. Interesting idea. Michigan and under Jim Harbaugh is 0-4. 0-4 the week before the Ohio State game. Now, they've lost to the Buckeyes every week as well, but I'm telling you right here, Michigan, Indiana, the line's up to almost 9.5. I love Indiana to cover this number. The last two times they have played in Bloomington, this game has gone to overtime. It's a touchdown game at most. Go ahead and hop on. I understand there's always a negative Nancy out there, not difficulty. Texas A&M on the road against Georgia. It's going to be low scoring. This Georgia offense under Jake Fromm has not been able to get a real rhythm going so far this year. That's going to continue. I like A&M to keep this game close, to keep this game potentially in single digits most of the way, and that's why I feel good about the Aggies here being able to cover the 13 or 14 points in this one. Go ahead and hop on board the Aggie Express with Jimbo Fisher. TCU at Oklahoma. This line's too big. Last several games for Oklahoma, do you know what's happened? It's been very close. The Sooners have won their last three. In their last three games, they've lost by 7. They have won by 1, and they've won by 3. 18 points is too many with Gary Patterson having time to get ready, and this is why I believe that the play, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is to hop on TCU. Illinois. Remember a couple of years ago when I told you that a couple of weeks ago, when I told you it made no sense that Illinois was a 15-point underdog on the road against Michigan State, and to not only bet Illinois on the line of 15, but also to take them on the money line at 5-1. And then what happened? Illinois went into East Lansing and beat Michigan State outright. I'm not saying necessarily they're going to do that again, but I am saying 15 points is too many, which is why you should be hopping on Illinois plus 15.5 in this game. And also, UCLA at Southern Cal. Interesting storyline to decide what Southern Cal is going to do with Clay Helton. I'll come back to this in a sec. But in the meantime, points aplenty. Could be Clay Helton's last game at Southern Cal. I love the idea of points raining down. UCLA going to score with Chip Kelly after coming off of an awful performance against Utah. Keeps going and will continue. The over 64.5. Texas Baylor. I like Baylor to bounce back and beat Texas by 5 or more. Tennessee at Mizzou. All right, tap the vein, boys and girls. Tap the vein. The blood bank guarantee is the under in this game. Tennessee on the road against Mizzou. Defenses are going to dominate here. The under has been on fire in this game. Let me tell you a couple of things. Mizzou 0-5 straight up in its last 5, as well as the under hitting in 4 straight. Meanwhile, Tennessee has had 4 of its last 5 games hit the under, and I am all in on Tennessee covering this number. It's down to 3.5. I gave it out at 5, and I love the under, which is at 46 right now, as my blood bank guarantee. Arkansas, LSU. Sometimes figuring out what's going to happen in a game is about getting into the psychology of the coach's head. LSU was awful defensively. Absolutely atrocious defensively against Ole Miss, particularly in the second half. I think what's going to happen here is LSU's going to come out, dominate against Arkansas, who can't score at all. And they are going to be having a field day, an absolute field day against this awful Arkansas team. This is literally the biggest line that's ever existed in the history of the SEC for one team against another. Arkansas's program is completely broken. I don't see that changing, but I see the under hitting beyond a shadow of a doubt, and that is why I am hopping on the under 70.5. I think it's come down a little bit since then. Plus, I don't think that LSU is going to want to let Joe Burrow stay in the game in the second half and risk a Tua-style injury. Finally, Penn State against Ohio State. This number's gotten too big. Last 3 games have been decided by 1, 1, and 3 in this series. I think that continues. Penn State keeps it close against Ohio State, much closer than the 18 points. All right, back to USC. This is an intriguing question that I don't know there's an easy answer for. What does the new AD and the new school president do at USC? Because USC's season comes to a close probably tomorrow. I know they still have a bowl game, but they're likely to finish 8-4 with Clay Helton. Do you go out and replace him and immediately start looking for a new coach? And if you do, the 2 top names on that list are Urban Meyer and James Franklin. If you think you can get either of those guys, then I think you have to make the decision to fire Clay Helton. If you're not 100% sure you can get either of those guys, I'm not sure that somebody deserves $20 million, as Clay Helton would, to not have to coach going forward. This is an intriguing question. I'm not sure there's an easy answer, but to me, SC, if they can get James Franklin or if they can get Urban Meyer, has to make the decision to run and get out of here. And I think that is the smart strategic move if you are USC. All right, last night, Colts Texans. I told you to take the Texans on the money line. Cha-ching. Instead of worrying about the 3.5. I told you to take the under. Cha-ching. Double wins last night on Thursday Night Football. I hope some of you guys listened and played both. Now, the question that I think emerges from this game, certainly the Texans at 7-4 take the driver's seat in the AFC South. The Colts fall to 6-5. But the big question the Colts have to answer going forward is Jacoby Brissett their quarterback of the future? Jacoby Brissett got basically an entire season's audition after Andrew Luck decided to retire unexpectedly right before the season began. What do the Colts do going forward? Have they gotten any information at all about what the future might be for Andrew Luck? Is it possible he's going to come back? If not, do you go back into the draft and go get a new quarterback, or do you commit long-term to Jacoby Brissett, who I think it's fair to say is just okay? Not a disaster, not an unmitigated disaster where you absolutely have to replace him, but with 5 games remaining, he's just okay. The Colts have played 10 games, all within a touchdown or less. They are 5-5 in those games. They've beaten some okay teams. They have lost a lot of games as well. And so the question is he the guy of the future? Now, people might say, oh, he's better than Mariota. Well, the Titans aren't playing Marcus Mariota. The Titans decided that Marcus Mariota is not their quarterback of the future. So the fact that he's better than Mariota, which I don't even believe, doesn't mean that he is a long-range answer for the Colts. I would love personally if the Colts would contribute $100 million to Jacoby Brissett and lock him up for the future. It's an easy question for the Texans. They know they have their quarterback of the future, Deshaun Watson. Titans have to decide in the division, is Ryan Tannehill the answer? Do you go back into the draft? What are you going to do depending on how the final 6 games go? I think if you could get Tua in Indy, I think that's a play you have to make. I think that is a pick you have to make. And by the way, I feel the same way about the Titans. But to me, that's the biggest question that comes out of the Jacoby Brissett experience. And by the way, if the Titans were to go on the road next week, and they never beat the Colts, but presume that they managed to beat the Colts, Colts are 6-6. And I think there would have to be an acknowledgement at that point that Jacoby Brissett is not the quarterback of the future. That's a story worth following. In the meantime, Texans, big bounce-back win after a disastrous performance on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. All right, last thing for you before I go get ready for the program here. Lock it in, Friday edition of the show, okay? The NFL does not believe Jussie Smollett a.k.a. Juicy Smollier, a.k.a. Jussie Garrett, a.k.a. Miles Smollett, a.k.a. Myles Garrett. This guy got caught in a lie, and the NFL did their own investigation, and they determined that there was absolutely no evidence out there to support the idea that Mason Rudolph had said anything at all of a negative nature against Myles Garrett. Now, a lot of you have asked me, what about a defamation lawsuit? It's an interesting question because there's no doubt that Mason Rudolph's name has been defamed by what Myles Garrett said about him, okay? So could he sue? The answer is yes. People always say, could he sue? The answer is yes. You can always sue. It's easy to do. It isn't complicated. There are lawyers who will file a lawsuit basically for any reason. So yes, he could sue for defamation. Here is the challenge. Here is the real difficult situation challenge. It's hard to win a defamation lawsuit because you have to show that somebody said something that was false and that they knew it was false. Okay? So how do you prove that this did not actually happen? Well, if you had perfect audio from the field, you could introduce that as evidence, but it's difficult to see, okay? It's difficult to have that perfect audio and say that it picked up every sound on the stadium, on the field, even if you did. Secondly, Myles Garrett can believe that a racial slur was said, even if one wasn't, right? You can easily see how in a crowded stadium where it's loud, there are people out there who are hearing news and you don't know necessarily what words are being said. So Myles Garrett could have a defense of, even if he didn't say a racial slur, I thought he did say a racial slur. And so that by itself could be a challenge in and of itself. Also, it has to be in a civil suit. You have to make it more likely than not. And that can be challenging as well. But this is indicative of one of the issues that I think is the biggest about the way that we handle accusations in the country today. Many people, because of their tribal loyalties or because of identity politics, immediately decide who they believe based on a pretty straightforward decision, okay? And that is, does this person look like me? Do they think like me in my mind? And if so, I'm going to believe them no matter what. This is the great flaw of the Me Too movement that I've been harping on for a while now. The idea like hashtag believe all women. No, I don't believe all women. I refuse to believe all women. Just like I would refuse to believe all men. Women lie, men lie. The idea that somebody is actually lying or not lying based on their gender or their sex or their religion or anything else is, to me, absolutely and completely broken. And so as you move through this process, I think one of the challenging situations as you make a determination is this. What exactly should be the standard when it comes to accusations? To me, we can't expect people to prove a negative. And if you listen to the radio show this morning, I made what I think is a good analogy. There's a kangaroo loose right now in the South, right? Every single person who's watching or listening to this video right now, I could pick out and say, like right now, I heard that you slept with that kangaroo, okay? How do you prove that you didn't sleep with the kangaroo that is missing in the South right now? There's a kangaroo on the loose. How do you prove that you didn't sleep with that kangaroo? Unless you have a film crew or a personal body servant who's with you every minute of every day, there's no witness to prove that you didn't. Most of us would acknowledge it's unlikely that it happened, but that goes to the difficulty of proving a negative. And a lot of times when accusations come out, we expect the accused to prove that it didn't happen. If somebody says to you, hey, so-and-so did this act, and it is an act that only a couple of people would have ever known about, how do you 100% prove that you didn't do it? You can't prove a negative. And that is why the criminal justice system and the civil justice system are predicated on the idea that in a criminal case, the state or the federal government has to prove that you did something, right? The defendant doesn't have to prove that he or she didn't do it. The defendant has to be proved to have done it. It's the obligation and the burden of the accusing party to prove that something happened, not the obligation and the burden of the accused to prove that it didn't happen. And this is very important, and it gets lost in our modern social media era. The other thing is, the same thing is true in a civil case. You, if you are suing someone, have to prove that they did it. They do not have to prove that they did not do it. Again, because the wisdom of trials over decades and hundreds of years has shown us that proving a negative is impossible, and that as a result, you should, as the accused, get the benefit of the doubt and be considered innocent unless somebody can prove that you are in fact guilty. I want you to think about that as you head into the weekend. I love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. I got to go do television with Lock It In now. Good luck on the gambling picks. Remember, given my blood bank guarantee here, Vols, Mizzou, under 46. See y'all. Love you. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See y'all.